Hi, everybody. Welcome to another session of Out of the Spiritual Closet with Dawn. I am here today with a beautiful soul, and her name is Brandi Van, and she is a medium and an intuitive. She is a psychic development mentor, and she helps highly sensitive people like yourself develop their unique gifts so you can experience abundance of peace and to also find your higher purpose through coaching and speaking. I can't speak today, Brandy. But through coaching and speaking, she leads her groups and gathers her tribe that way. So Brandy helps people discover and develop their psychic abilities and to realize that we're all connected here on earth and that we all have a higher meaning and objective. So everybody give Brandi a warm welcome.
All right. Thank you so much for having me today. Really appreciate it. Hello to all the listeners out there. Thanks so much for following Dawn. We know she has a beautiful message, so really appreciate her work out there.
Thank you, Brandi. See, now you know why Brandi's here. And as I was telling her before we started, this month was my birthday month, and I was doing a bunch of give backs with people that I've worked with personally. But when I came into contact with Brandi, her energy just warmed me to my very soul. And like I was telling her, she's got a hippie kind of name like mine. And so we vibed. But no, she has a beautiful soul. She does beautiful work for her clients and she's trying to make the world a better place. And so I'm all in on that. And her energy is so on fire. If you notice, I know I'm in Florida, but I am starting to sweat over here.
Aw.
It's cute. So when we get together with people whose energy is just such a beautiful frequency, that can often happen. So thank you for coming today, Brandi, and spending some time with us. So I want to let you get to know Brandi a little bit here. We all know I have a tendency to overtalk. So Brandi, can you tell us a little bit about how you came into tune, how you came into contact with your gifts? Is this something you've had your whole life or something you discovered later?
Sure. So from a very young age, I knew I had something, but I would tend to ignore it. I was afraid that people would think I was crazy or they thought I was making it up, and I didn't feel comfortable talking about it. And so I ignored it until one day I had a very spiritual, very enlightenment experience where I couldn't ignore it anymore and I didn't want to ignore it anymore. So I was about 20, 21 years old, and my family was in the hospice room with my grandma as she took her last breath. And we were all holding hands. And, obviously, it's a very sad time. Everyone's crying. We know the matriarch of our family is about to pass away. But as she took her last breath, I literally felt her spirit rise above the bed. And in that moment, it was like, okay, I can't ignore this. Like, what is going on? It was so strong. And I looked above the bed, and the only way I can describe it is a kaleidoscope of colors, like the most magnificent, brilliant colors I've ever seen. And they were forming a star and they were beating in and out like a heartbeat. And I was just
Beautiful.
so amazed in that moment. Like, I could feel her angels coming to welcome her into the spirit world. I knew she was at peace. I knew she was comforted and going on to this amazing new place. And I actually left the room because it was so strong. And my cousins came out and they thought I couldn't handle how sad it was, but I actually couldn't handle how strong of what I was experiencing. But it took me years to tell them that that's what I was experiencing.
That's what I was just going to ask you
Yeah.
because the name of this podcast is Out of the Spiritual
Yes.
Closet.
Yes.
So, as many people struggle to like say these things because people look at you funny, and especially
Yes.
at a time like that with your grandmother passing.
Yes. And I didn't want to be disrespectful, or like, what if they thought I was making it up, or, just to make them feel better.
Exactly.
So I didn't say anything probably for 10 or more years. I finally told them. And I was expecting them to be very skeptic. And when I opened up to my family, they were not surprised at all. My mom's like, "Oh yeah, I have psychic abilities." And then my aunt's like, "Oh yeah, I have them
I love
too."
that.
And my uncle, my cousins, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we kind of all have this." And I was like, "Okay, why did nobody ever talk about it?" here I am thinking I'm alone and people would think I'm crazy. And they were like not surprised at all. And then started telling me all about their experiences.
And that's funny because you do find, not always, not 100%, because some people went with their certain families just to learn something, but typically these kind of gifts run in family lines. So it is part of the DNA, part of the ancestral line. For me, my family has all the same things too, but they'd be just like, yeah, no, 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 or like, we don't talk about that outside of, family time. So same thing. And I think that was the generations before, right? Because of the
Yeah.
religious dogma on top of the
Hmm.
spirituality, people were afraid, and safety was so big for those for those older generations, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I find that funny though when you hear similar stories like that. So okay, they fess up, you fess up, they go, yeah, yeah, we all know this now. Has that support of your family and knowing that made a difference for you?
Definitely. So now I feel like I can talk to them at any time about it. And it really motivated me to become the mentor that I am today because I'm like, you know what? Obviously, I'm not the only person going through this. So if there's a world of people out there who are hiding this and don't want to talk about it, like I would love to be the spokesperson. Like, let's all become light workers. Let's all do this together. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Like, you have an amazing ability. Let's embrace it and like just change the world. So that's where
I
I'm at
love
right
that.
now.
I love that. And as you were talking, I was hearing the word courage, right? So there are certain people in the families that have the courage and we like to talk. So we're
Yes.
like, well, and the reason I was asking you about, did it make a difference for you when your family kind of supporting you, um, is because what you do, you're a mentor, you're a coach. And so just for people to kind of understand that we all need somebody, right? Even
Yes.
her with her gifts and, all the things that she can do for others, if as a human being you don't have somebody else that goes, yes, I get it, or I understand, or that's freaky. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, what did you think? That kind of kumbaya back and forth, it can be a lonely place.
Yes. And I love that I can give them that community, it's like-minded individuals, non-judgmental. I've heard and seen it all. I don't think there's anything someone could tell me that I'm like, nah, you're not crazy. Don't worry. I've experienced it too.
Right, right, yeah. And I do love that because um over the past couple of years, I've become much more vocal. And my mother's one of my greatest supporters. But same thing when I was a kid, and I would say, oh God, mom, when I go to sleep, I see all these pictures and these images. And she'd be like, just pray your rosary. It'll be okay. And I'd be like, okay, just
Yeah.
pray. And that was good advice in itself because you're never going to go wrong with intentions and your prayers. However, I think there was so much fear before. And she didn't know how to guide, because they were keeping us safe. So I keep going back to that whole safety thing. Having a safe community like Brandy's or like mine, having a safe community where we understand and we're going to say, yeah, okay, yeah, that's kind of weird, but yeah, okay, yeah, I can see where that would be. Oh, what I was going to say was, I was just telling my mom the other day that, oh yeah, I got some messages from grandpa. He said XYZ about
That's awesome.
XYZ. And she's like, huh. And where a couple of years ago, when I was still tempering my messages because of how I was raised, I probably wouldn't have said it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, just having that community. So for me, community has been huge. Brandy, what's the biggest change? Well, let me step back a second. For the people that work with you, do many of them feel like they're interested, but they don't really have gifts, or how does that go?
Absolutely. So I always tell them, we all have these abilities. It's just like playing the piano or playing basketball or something. You just have to know, like, there has to be a way to learn how to do it, which unfortunately we don't really have other than reading books. And this is something that really needs to be experienced, not just read. So,
It
but
is
yeah, they're always
experiential.
like, I don't know if I have anything, but let's see if I do. And then they start telling me about their experiences. And I'm like, clearly you have something. I think they just need that like validation for someone to say, like, no, listen to yourself. Like, you definitely have
Right.
something. And then they'll get through like half my program, and because it's 90 days, and people get to like the halfway point and they're like, I don't think this is working. I don't know if if I can do this. And I just have to push them through, like, nothing happens overnight. So you've only been doing this for like 6 or 8 weeks. Like, it's not
Right.
going to happen overnight. You have to keep going. You join this program for a reason. You want to see that transformation. So keep going. And then they do. And then all this stuff starts happening to them. And it's just like it opens their eyes up, like, okay, I'm glad I kept going. So
Well,
it's
and I
really
think that
awesome.
speaks to like the limiting beliefs. If you're constantly told no, no, no throughout
Mhm.
life, or that's crazy, or that's never going to work, then you're
Yes.
putting that's in your auric field, it's in your
Yes.
energy. And so you will doubt. And as you were talking, I was seeing the picture of like a baby crawling and then walking and then running. And that's kind of, what you experience with spiritual gifts. And now some people go right from crawling to running, right? And climbing mountains. But it's called the practice of spirituality
Yes. Yes.
because it requires practice and attention. Now, that's not to say you can't get messages and things, but do you find for yourself that having solid spiritual practices helps you, or
Absolutely. It's just like anything, like how I said before about playing the piano, if you play the piano, but then you take a year off, it's going to be much more rustier, and you're going to have to remind yourself. But if you can just even do, a 10 or 20-minute practice every day of your spirituality, it's just going to always be there so that you don't have to like kind of go back and retrace your steps. So, yeah, definitely. And it's almost like once you get to this point, you don't want to not do it. Like, it just becomes amazing, and like your motivation is there. You just want to do it. It's like your passion. Like, I just love doing it. So I don't
I
see
love
anyone why they
that.
wouldn't want to do it.
Right. It's like back in a bit ago, not for a while, but I was a gym rat, more or less. And, the more I'd work out, the more I'd want it in that. And it has kind of gotten to that way with spirituality too, where, I have to do a morning walk and a morning meditation and a
Mhm.
clearing, definitely
Yes.
a clearing. Um, what is one of your biggest joys that you experience working with people?
I just love to watch their transformation. Like, you know, I've created this program to be like kind of an A to Z. This is what you do, this is what you need to learn. But as my clients go through it, like, some of them have abilities that I don't even have. And so it's like I created this program not knowing what to expect. I mean, I knew they were going to get abilities, but now, like, their abilities are different than mine, which is amazing to me because
Oh,
was taught a certain way through my mentor, and I kind of put that all together. And so I wasn't expecting, I guess, these, my clients to have these amazing. I mean, of course I want them to have amazing results, but
no, but you think of, I do XYZ, so the
yes.
people that come to me will do
Yes, exactly.
XYZ.
Yes, thank you.
And it's just a matter of everybody is so unique.
Yes.
And that's where when you're working with somebody, the healer themselves gets something too.
Yes.
We learn something, we take a new experience. Also, it gives you a different way of looking at things. And
Mhm.
so it may, your gifts may change, or
Oh,
the
yeah.
way that you do things may change because somebody sparks the creativity.
Yes, they
And
have.
before we got on, Brandy and I were talking about affiliations, and I really believe that as we're going to this 5D, golden kind of world, that people like Brandy and myself are out here and showing you that we're not in competition. We do the same things, but we're all going to do them differently, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so we're not in competition, but Brandy may end up having a client or a student that is better served coming over by me now, or someone that's been one of my group will hear her say something today to be like, oh my gosh, I want to get into her program.
Yes.
And so please know that the more that we affiliate and collaborate and come together and stop being a me society and be a we society, we are helping ourselves and others. We're all going to grow. And then with all
Absolutely.
that positive frequency out there, it just makes the world a better place. We need more light workers out there. So if Brandy can inspire you and get that flame going, if you want to play in her world, check her out. We'll have the links with this. You can click on her links, go to her website, listen to her. She's been touring a lot of podcasts lately. She is really making the rounds out there. So you can listen to her on some of the shows because each of these will be different and what we cover. So just check her out. All her links will be below. So I appreciate that. Um, What's one of the biggest transformations that you've gone through as the teacher mentor?
Yes. So it's really the feedback I get from the clients. It seems like every single time I meet with a client, they spark something in me that I'm like, oh, you know what? I need to add that into the program. So I'm just like thinking that I have it all done. And then I have another meeting with a client and I'm like, oh, I can add that in there. So they're teaching me as much as I'm teaching them. Like I'm learning so much from them because I already did this years ago. And so it kind of, you kind of forget your journey. But then when you're watching someone do it in real time and they're giving you
Right.
that feedback, you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot I went through that too. Or let me add that in there. So
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's a
Well,
growing
because
experience.
sorry, but I was going to say is because everybody says, "Oh, well, you're psychic or you're spiritual and this and that." That doesn't take away the normal life stuff, right?
Yes.
And there's growing pains with all these stages and that. So being able to kind of go, oh yeah, it felt that way when I went through it. Because
Yeah.
it can be hard, when you're working on clearing out old stuff and that we're faced with shadow parts of ourselves.
Mhm.
And sometimes they're kind of not fun,
Yeah.
like to pick it up and look at. And so to have a mentor, a coach that helps you through that is so helpful because we're going to experience ups and downs. And if you think about the spiral, the ascension is a spiral. It's not just a straight shot
Yes.
up. You go up, you come down, And so if we think about that, we just don't want to get stuck.
Yes.
It's not all roses, but you just don't want to get stuck sitting in any low stuff for too long. It's all part of the experience, but we
Mhm.
want to move through that. And sometimes that's hard to do on your own, and you do need somebody to help you. Many people, and I don't know if this ever happened to you, but on the spiritual journey, it can be lonely and it can be scary and stuff. Many people just quit and they
Haven't
go,
had any
don't want to do this. No, 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 not worth it.
Yeah. I haven't had any clients quit yet, but I
No,
do
I
feel
mean
like,
you. I mean,
oh,
like a healer themselves,
oh,
because
no way. I love it.
okay, all right. Well, sometimes it happens along the
I can
way,
see that. I can see that. Yeah.
but
Not me though.
you had a mentor to help you and your
Yes.
stumbling points.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely. And I also stay in my lane, right? Because some things like I can't work with them, like if they do really have that emotional, I don't want to say baggage, but like if they do have that hard stuff to work through, I always say, maybe find a good friend or family member, maybe find a therapist. And it could be a lifelong process. It doesn't mean like, oh, you have to figure it out right now or you can't develop your abilities, but it's kind of a hand in hand work on it while you're doing your abilities. But yeah, I always stay in my lane. I am not a therapist, I am not a medical practitioner. I
correct.
can give you those tools, but if you really need to work it out with someone, maybe I'm not the best person because I'm not a therapist. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that any of us needs to stay in our lanes, right?
Yeah.
What's your specialty? What we can help each other with, and then point them in the right direction if we know somebody. So let's see. I'm trying to think as we're coming to a close here on our time together. I wanted to ask, what's new and exciting? What do you have coming up this fall?
So I'm a big Halloween person. So I
Okay,
love
because my
Halloween.
team just said ask you that. So I'm like, okay.
Yes. So I am going to Ireland for Halloween this year. That is the birthplace of Halloween. It's where it all started with the Celtic people and the Samhain tradition. So I'm doing like the old school Halloween traditions that they still do over there with like a lot of like fire ceremonies and like in the middle of the woods, like
How
my poor
cool is that?
husband, but he's a trooper.
Does
So
he
yeah,
get he'll play? He'll go with and
yeah,
play?
he'll go with me, and for him, we're going to Manchester so he can watch his soccer games. But he'll do his soccer stuff, and then I'm doing the Halloween stuff, and I just am so excited to do that.
That I know they wanted you to talk about that. Hey, maybe you'll do some lives from there.
Yes, that would be awesome. That's a great
Or when
idea.
you're back, if you want to come back on and talk about it, because I know
Okay.
she's going to experience stuff there.
Yes, definitely. I'm sure I
Yeah.
will.
Take lots of pictures. All right.
Yes.
Have fun. I love that. I love that. So her team really wanted to make sure that we put that out there about the Ireland. And so I am about going with the spirit messages. So that's what they wanted out there. And I think that she'll have some more not information, but stories and stuff to share with us after she gets back. So I love that. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time today, Brandi. I really appreciated talking with you and getting to know you a little bit. Um, and just thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me. And everyone, keep listening. It's great messages going on here, and we just want to continue to support Dawn. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.